Hi, my name is Natalie. I enjoy doing a variety of arts and crafts projects. Today we're going to make a jelly plate from scratch. Now the reason I need to make this jelly plate today is because I had a jelly plate that I was using and I allowed some paint to dry on it for several days, and when I went to remove it with another layer of paint, it pulled up quite a bit of the jelly, leaving these divots in the plate. Now I believe you can do this with a store-bought plate and it's not a problem because it is a firmer surface, but with a homemade jelly plate, this is not working well. A little bit of paint is fine, but a lot is not. So underneath that jelly plate, you'll see I store my jelly plates on this is a cutting board or a cutting mat from the dollar store, and you get 2 per package, so it's a very reasonable price for storing my plates on. Now this is what I store them in. This is just a clamshell that I ordered from Amazon. It's about maybe 3/4 of an inch thick, so it is perfect for storing my jelly plates in. It keeps them clean, keeps things from making divots in them or cuts in them, and I can stack them up nicely for my different jelly plates. So my different jelly plates I have made myself. I have molded from these pans. And these are, most of them, from the dollar store. Now the thing you want to look for that I'm showing you there is that they don't have any ridge in them. They don't have a low spot in them so that when you mold it, that would be a high spot. And they also don't have any logo indented or impressed into the bottom of them. So that makes them perfect pans for creating jelly plates. So anything that is smooth on the bottom, doesn't have a divot like that or a ridge around the edge of it, can make a nice jelly plate. This is a larger pan that didn't have the ridge in it, and I bought this one at Walmart, paid a few dollars more for it, but again, I'll be able to make jelly plates forever out of it, and it makes a nice larger size jelly plate. So the ingredients for jelly plate are unflavored gelatin, and I buy mine at Walmart, the Walmart brand, and it's very inexpensive. And then the second ingredient to go with that, coming up here in just a second, is glycerin. And I also find my glycerin at Walmart. So the glycerin comes in 6-ounce bottles, and they're not very expensive at Walmart. I'll show you here on the side what it looks like. I find them by the calamine lotion and other itchy skin lotion type things at Walmart. So first thing I do is take a microwavable safe container. Glycerin and gelatin are both food safe items, so putting them in your microwave safe container that you use to cook with is just fine as far as I know. And so you pour in both bottles of glycerin. Now there's a little foil seal over the top of that. It takes a little bit to get that loose, but pull that off and pour in your glycerin. Now I leave them upside down and put the lid on them so that I can get more out of them. And then I'm going to take them to the sink and fill them with hot water, which is going to wash out the rest of that glycerin, but we're going to use that as part of our recipe. So then we're going to take 7 packets of gelatin. I'll count them out here for you. 4 packets here, 3 more packets there, and again I said 7 packets, so we have 7 packets here of gelatin. Open the gelatin up and sprinkle that on top of the glycerin. We're going to allow that gelatin to bloom or to absorb into the glycerin as the first step here of the process. We want to put in all 7 packets, obviously. Just pour them over the top, spreading them around a little bit. So once I get them all poured in, I'm going to spread them around so that they cover the surface, and will take a little less time to absorb. The absorption of this takes 5 to 10 minutes maybe. You just have to kind of be patient and watch it and see it absorb. And when I see areas that the glycerin has already absorbed the gelatin, then I will move that around a little bit so that more of the powder is absorbed down into the glycerin. Now here I'm going to pour glycerin that came to the top as it was set upside down and pour that over so we don't waste any of it. And I'm going to go fill these bottles with some hot water. I'll be back in a moment. This is kind of like watching paint dry, isn't it? There's my bottles of hot water. I don't use quite all of the hot water when I go to pour this in a few minutes. I use about 1.5 bottles. So again, I am just pushing the powder around that hasn't absorbed down into the glycerin yet, moving it around so that it gets better coverage. And we'll give that a few more minutes to absorb down into that glycerin and for the gelatin to bloom. So once it's pretty much all absorbed down in, I'm going to start stirring that in. Start bringing some of the glycerin up to the top to get those last few little bits that haven't absorbed. But you can see that gelatin is pretty liquidy down in there in the glycerin. You just get that glycerin and gelatin all stirred in together. And then I start adding the hot water on top of that. Now, even though it's hot water, it's still not quite enough heat to bring this all up to temperature so that the gelatin is all entirely melted. So I'm going to add about 1.5 bottles. So that's going to be about 10 ounces, 9 or 10 ounces of water, hot water to this. I'm kind of scraping down the sides to make sure I get as much of the gelatin incorporated as possible. And then I'm going to take it to my microwave and microwave it in 30-second increments until it looks, it's kind of cloudy looking, but yet it's clear. You can see that there aren't any gelatin granules in it. So I do several 30-second increments, and here it is. See how it still has kind of a cloudy appearance on the top, but there's no gelatin granules in it still. And you'll see once I start pouring this into the pan that it really is quite clear. So here's my pan. There's no coating on it or anything. I just pour the glycerin and gelatin and water mixture right straight into the pan, trying not to get very many bubbles in it. Now I like my gelatin plates about 1/2 inch deep or thick, so I'm measuring it with the bottom of my spoon so I can see about how deep I've got it in the pan here. I'm going to have enough gelatin left over actually to make a second small gelatin plate here, and I'm going to use one of these small loaf pans that you can get at the craft store, especially around holiday time. And the same thing, I want that to be about 1/2 inch deep so that my gelatin plate will be about 1/2 inch thick when it's finished. Testing it there again, scraping out the last of the mixture. We're going to set that aside and let it cool completely. It takes an hour, 2 hours. You can let it set longer overnight. But here you can see it is like Jello. It is smooth on the top, almost no bubbles in it. I'm taking a sharp knife and just running that along the edge to start releasing that from the pan. And once I have run that entirely around the edge, then I'm going to pick the pan up and start gently pulling a little bit at it so that the air can start getting underneath and it will all just release from the pan. So just kind of start pulling just gently with it. You can see the air bubble under that first corner. And here we go, the air bubble under the second corner. and then I'm going to tip the pan over, and gravity is going to release that from the pan. Now I'm going to set that down onto the cutting mat that I purchased from the Dollar Tree, and I have cut it down to be the right size for this jelly plate and to fit inside my clamshell that I have. Now you can certainly adjust these a little bit. You want to try to get it as square as possible. And you can see my top edge there is a little wavy, but I'm going to let gravity do some work here and put that back down so it squares itself up automatically. Now this jelly plate does have a little bit of texture from the pan because it had that non-stick coating on it. And I find that sometimes if you remelt a jelly plate, you will get less texture the second time. I cannot explain why that happens, but you can take your pan and there's a couple of ways you can remelt it. If you want to do that, if you don't like the texture that you get, you can tear the jelly plate up and remelt it in a glass microwave safe container. Or if you have an electric stove, you can put it on the very lowest setting on a 1 and just set your pan right on your electric burner and let that remelt and mold a second time. And you should get a better texture on it. And so here I'm going to take that small jelly plate and unmold that one. These plates are great for making ATCs for the smaller ones. I use them for making Rolodex art. The Rolodex cards fit nicely on here. So I'm going to do the same process to unmold this and get some air under it. And then it's going to start coming right out of the pan. So just pull it right up and out. Now it looks like when I cut around the edge on that, I didn't get a clean cut. So I do not have a nice clean top edge on that. There's a piece that pulled off. So what I'm going to do is just put that right back in the microwave and heat it up again and until it melts, and then let it cool again and remold it. So it's as simple as that. So thank you so much for joining me today for making a homemade jelly plate, and I hope you will join me again soon as we experience another project. Take care. Bye-bye.